Hello, hello everyone. How are you in the amazing Mediocre to Magical Academy? Ashley Amudzai here, the Psychic Life Coach. And I'm so excited with another Thought Leader Thursday, my friend Timothy Gay. He's going to be popping on here anytime. But while we're waiting for him, I thought maybe we would do a card pull, because why not? For those of you who are curious, I know some of you are new to tarot or divination cards. I love to knock twice. Hello, mama's home. And I blow off any other energy from clients or from my little one playing with it. Oh, there he is. Cool. Approved. Yay. Okay, Timothy is almost on. Adding. So yeah, I'm going to pull a card. While we're waiting, whatever card is, oops, look, this one came right out. Hey, Monica, how are you? I see you guys popping on. Okay, this card says, I witness the darkness and call in the light with my prayer. Thank you, universe, for guiding me to perceive this fear through the eyes of the teacher of love. How beautiful is that? It's amazing. Hi, Timothy. There you are.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good. Welcome. Yay. I'm so glad you're on. I can hear you perfectly, too.
Awesome. Excellent. I'm looking a little weird on the live, but I'm like, whatever, we'll roll with it.
It works. I'm so glad you're here. So all of my friends, our beautiful audience in the Academy, this again is my friend Timothy Gay, and he is a Theta Healer, which is what I'm so excited to talk about because I'm not really familiar with it. And that's what inspired me to reach out to him, because he is an expert in this field and in his practice, but also the founder of the Infinite Transition. So first of all, Timothy, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. You are oh my goodness, I've had an ultra busy week. So this is like event number 4 of 7 days. So I've had, I was down in Carson City on Sunday. I had a radio interview yesterday. I had a meditation on Tuesday. So I've been running around.
Rock on. Yeah, making a difference in the world and in the community. I love that. And especially with the gift of theta healing, too. It's something that I feel is really unique. And so many people need it. So let's dive right in. Timothy, tell us a little bit about you and your journey, and how did you even become like a coach or a theta healer?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, currently reside here in Reno, Nevada. I've been here for almost 2 years. Um, by trade, am actually a musician, sing, play saxophone, write and compose music, still do those things as well. But growing up, I was highly teased and bullied as a child, and I dealt with suicidal depression probably from the age of 7 up until the age of 27 when I first encountered Theta Healing. And I found myself floating in and out of depression, doing things such as meditation, going to meditation groups, seeing a lot of tarot card readers, seeing Reiki practitioners, things of that nature to kind of help me get out. And I always found myself, whether I would start to get out from that position of suicidal depression, I would always fall back in. So I was always in this wave of in and out. Well, in 2013, February of 2013, I was in a last minute invite by a friend to meet this Theta Healing practitioner. And at the time
Like, what's that? Yeah.
exactly. And at the time I was in network marketing, and we already had an event that I was planning to go to about a week in advance. And last minute I was like, no, something said, you need to go to this. So last minute, when both events were actually decided to start, I ditched my old event, went to the introduction to Theta Healing. And what I was amazed by is how fast it worked, how effective it was, and how intricate it was able to go in a short period of time. And so I remember seeing this woman, seeing this Theta Healing practitioner shortly after that. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And at the time I was working a job that I was absolutely dissatisfied and I hated. And actually that same friend who invited me, believe it or not, to the event to actually stay at this job for 2 years. But after 1 year, I was already like, nah, this ain't it. So I had actually gotten to a point where I was ready to walk through the death door. And I said, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And something said, no, you need to stop. So I called, I actually texted the practitioner. I said, I need to have an emergency session with you. She said, okay, I can get you in about 2 days. My first thought was like, 2 days? What the hell? I don't have 2 days, but I'm like, you know what? Let me go for it.
Yeah.
That session saved my life, and it took about 30 minutes. I haven't had those symptoms of suicide or depression since. And that's when I said there's more to this this modality that I need to learn. So when the
Mm.
opportunity came to learn the theta healing technique, I said yes, and the rest is history. And I've been doing this now. What next month will be 6 years.
Wow, wow. I don't know if I knew that, or maybe I forgot. That's amazing. Like, truly committed to the practice. And what I love of what you've said is like you've tried everything, right?
Hmm.
Can you guys hear that? Can you hear that buzzing sound?
No buzzing for
Hopefully
me.
there's.
I'm not sure if anyone
Okay,
else can.
good. If you
No,
can, let me know. I
no,
have
it's
a
really
big
funny.
team. Yeah.
It's funny because like I was on a live with someone last week and we actually both had to unplug our headphones because it was echoing. And so, normally headphones are the things that resolve it, and that time it was the cause. And I'm like, all right, fine, let's just pull this thing out and go.
You never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, I just set the intention that whatever's meant to be is totally meant to be. But yeah, I have a big team of people that are popping up, and it's on do not disturb. But anyways, it's all good. So I think that is so amazing. And what you had said is I've tried everything,
Hmm.
right? The meditation, the Reiki, and X, Y, Z. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. That's where a lot of people where suicide seems like an option, And I personally have experienced that as well. When those words and that experience and that thought follows the belief of I've tried everything and nothing is working. And so I was really, really fascinated by your story because it is truly, truly life changing. So let's talk about what your session looks like. What does a session look like when someone comes in to work with you?
Absolutely. So with me, yeah, let's first talk a little bit about what theta healing is, and then I'll talk about the session if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Perfect. Awesome. So theta healing is a technique that encompasses focused thought, prayer, meditation, guided imagery to create a deeper connection with the subconscious mind. And in order to do that, we create a connection with creator of all that is, God, source, universe, whatever the case may be, whatever name you choose to give that all-encompassing universal intelligence. And we create that connection with the subconscious within our own bodies. And that allows us to look for any limiting beliefs and blocks and factors that we may be having that kind of hold us back from the things that we're looking to achieve in our life or we're looking to create, or even release things like such as trauma and underlying causes of that. So a lot of our sessions, what a lot of my sessions would look like is I'm looking to get to the root cause of any issue, whether it be physical health and wellness, money blocks, relationship issues, career or business related issues, whatever the case may be. And my goal is what we do is we go through a process called digging. So we incorporate a lot of what would be talk therapy, what a lot of people would consider to be talk therapy, and allow them to bring up that emotion, that feeling. And the main reason why is because a lot of people don't want to feel these feelings again of the trauma that they've had in the past. But when we originally felt and experienced that trauma, it was in a manner that we didn't want it. So now, in order to release it, you got to bring it up again. But this time, by bringing it up again, you're not feeling it so that it can go back in your body. You're feeling it so
Right.
that it can release. And for many people, it's like, I don't want to feel this feeling again. Well, do you want it to go back into your body and wreak more havoc on you? Or do you want to bring it up so that it can be released? So what we do is we go through a little bit of talk therapy, guided imagery. I'm guiding them through a series of questions that I'm getting messages from the infinite, and we're getting to the root cause of the core belief or the core issue. And I talk about root causes because you can't heal surface stuff. I mean, if all you wanted was a surface healing, then go to the store, get some aspirin, or go to the doctor and get psychiatric drugs. Now, I'm by no means totally against any of these things because I actually quit. I was on psychiatric drugs and I quit cold turkey, and I don't recommend anybody doing that. I
Yeah,
don't recommend that
yeah.
to anyone. Don't ever, if you're on antidepressants, in SSRI, whatever the case may be, never quit cold turkey. Wean yourself off of it. Because when you quit cold turkey, then you have to now shock your brain into functioning again without those things. But if you wean yourself off of it, your brain learns how to do it naturally. And then, of course, you use other tools to go along the way. That being said, getting back to what I was saying, we always go to the root cause because that's what's actually running you. So what we then do as a practitioner, I'm guiding them into the theta brainwave state. I'm in a theta brainwave state, so that's what the name theta healing comes from, the theta brainwave state. We work somewhere between a theta, delta, gamma brainwave. And in doing that, what I learned to do, what we are taught in the technique and the practice, is to create a command, what we say, creator of all that is. It is commanded that this belief be pulled and sent to the light. Thank you, it is done, it is done, it is done. And then we say, show me. And so thank you, of course, showing gratitude. It is done, it is done, it is done, showing absolute conviction that this healing will happen. And then what we do is we witness that healing happen. So if you think of the subconscious mind like a computer, think about the things that are bogging down your computer: viruses, old files, messed up registry, so forth and so on. That's what we're removing. And when you remove it at the core, you're actually pulling out the support system for all those things that were on top, all that stuff that showed up at the surface. So we say, well, people are alcoholics, we got to stop the alcoholism. No, what led to that alcoholism? What led to that drug addiction? What led to that sex addiction? What led to that violent outburst? That's what I want to heal. And that's what my focus is on. So when you pull that core issue out, then the alcoholism goes away, because now they don't have that trigger anymore. They don't have that pain point. They don't have that issue going on. So my focus is always to go to the root cause of the issue. And once we do that, then we get to create another command and replace it with something much supportive and empowering. Because you do have to replace, you have to replace the empty space with something that can also give, that can support them and empower them. Because otherwise, if you create an empty space, anything can fill it in. So
Yeah, void.
absolutely, if there's a, you know, like if I'm digging a hole in my backyard and I don't plant anything and fill it with, you know, if I'm planting a flower and I don't fill the hole that I just dug with the flowers, well, what's going to go in there? Water is going to go in there. More soil is going to go back in there. It's just going to, you know, erode back into the same space. So if I don't plant the flower and then fill the rest of the hole around it, I don't have anything to support the flower, if that makes any sense.
Totally. It does. It does. Whenever you move, you always have to fill it up with something different.
Yes. And I also want to sit here and say to you all that, like, one of the best things about being an energy healing practitioner is that I myself am not the healer. I'm just the channel. I facilitate the process. And I think one thing that, you know, for those of us like, I'm a healer, well, that's kind of a misnomer, because really I'm not. I'm just the facilitator. But that's perfect, because then I don't have to do all the work. God's doing the work. I'm just facilitating the process and witnessing it, showing them like, hey, I'm channeling this through. This is what's coming up. So it's really cool to have that facilitation process and basically be able to share people with the things that I see coming up. And it's absolutely amazing. And I've seen some really wonderful healings from other people. I've seen some really amazing things happen for myself. And what's even cool is I still have other people work on me, because I have blind spots. So it's important to share that with everyone, because we think we can do it all ourselves, and you can't do it alone. You can heal yourself, but you can't heal by yourself.
And you're always going to have blind spots. Like even now, I could look around my body. We can look around our body, but we can't see right in the middle of our back, right? No matter how hard we try, no matter how flexible we are. So that co-collaboration, and that's the whole point of Thought Leader Thursday, of like, who are people that are sharing the same message? I love that. Oh my gosh, what you said, it just gave me chills. And we talked before this, like for a couple of hours, and I was like, yes, it's so amazing. Because yeah, calling yourself a healer, we're not. And that's one of my next questions is, how is Theta Healing different? And I'll share from my perspective, because I did have a session with Timothy. How it's different is, it's not the psychic doing all of the work. There you go. Now do what you want with it. It's not the Reiki practitioner doing all of the work. There you go. Do what you want with it. It's like you are a participant in the healing, and you're asking permission. We're getting clarity. We're consciously uprooting it. Like you're really participating in that entire experience. And that's really empowering. And I feel it holds more weight and more transition, the infinite transition, in fact.
Absolutely. And the play on words is because, you know, we're always growing, we're always moving, and we're always in a transition. And when we level up, we hit a new set of lessons. So, you know, you can't level up and stay in the same spot. It won't work. If you level up and you have the same people around you, you're going to be pulled back where they are. Like, and just to give you a great example of that, Snoop Dogg had like an interview with A$AP Rocky many years ago, and he was talking about the gap. And some of you may know what I'm talking about, some of you don't. If you don't, I'm going to have to find this video and post it for all of you, because it's seriously
Post it
worth
below.
it. What he talked about is ASAP Rocky was talking about, something about growing and growing in the business. And Snoop was talking about, when you started out, it was just you and your homies. And that was really big for him. And, but he also talked about how when you're looking to grow, at some point you encounter the gap. And so what he talked about is this is the gap, this is you, this is the gap, this is the and they don't. So how do you close the gap? You have to come back down. But when you come back down, you lose. That's why the gap has to be them closing the gap, has to be them catching up to you. And if they don't, and if they're not catching up to you, you got to leave them behind.
Yeah.
And it's a really painful lesson for a lot of us because when we level up, we want to bring everyone with us. But you can't bring people who aren't ready. You can't bring people who don't want to be there. And that becomes one of the biggest challenges in our lives because we want everyone to experience what we experience, and not everyone wants what we want. And that's perfectly fine. Brian Melendez, who I'm not sure you were at the same meditation that I was at.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be on here too. Love him.
Oh, that's
yeah.
perfect. You got to go to one of his sweats. They're seriously worth it. I was at his full moon women's sweat this past weekend, and it was amazing. But he always talks about he always says a prayer that says, "Let the people who need to find us, and the people that don't need to find us, don't ever let them find us." And it was funny because when he first said that prayer, and I told him this over the weekend, I was like, when you first said that, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And then I was working with my business coach, and she basically said something very similar to that. Like, you want your marketing to attract the people who need you, and the people who don't need you to never allow them to see it. Well, then Marianne Williamson came, and he held the Native Caucus for her, and he said that prayer to her, and she was like, "That's right." And that's when I was like, "All right."
Oh, yeah.
Time to listen. I mean, you hear 3 times. Folks, if you hear anything 3 times, it's time to shut up and listen. And that was my 3rd time. And I'm like, you know what? At that point, it's time to stop hiding. Get your message out. And the people who need to see you will see you. And those that don't need to see you, don't even worry about them.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a minute because I actually just had a conversation with a friend, and it was survivor's guilt is what she was talking about. And having gone through a lot of trauma, and now where she's at personally is like she's thriving. And so I've had that experience as well of like I got out, but the people who are like my previous, like my friends or network or family, whatever, they're still floundering like in their own healing journey. But I got out. Like it's clear to me. I know where I'm going, right? So we were having this conversation about that survivor's guilt. And I can see this so clearly with healing, right? If we really feel that calling, right, we shut up and listen because we hear all of these, okay, this is where I need to go, who I need to talk to, what I need to do. But then we start healing, we start shifting, and we're going to notice those previous relations sometimes feeling like dead weight. And that's okay. That's not bad. It's not, it shouldn't be survivor's guilt. But instead, it's the law of transmutation that whatever the highest vibration in the room is, other vibrations will rise to meet that. So for example, if you're like listening to music in the car, say you're having a bad day, but your favorite song comes on, and then all of a sudden you're like dancing to the music because you're going to tune into that vibration. So I want to talk about this because it's something that's prevalent, is we want to do as much of our healing as we can. We want to dig deep. We want to have that transformation, that infinite transition, because it helps us be a better version of ourselves and it shows other people what is possible. And also when you are on your healing journey and you step into a room full of those people, they're like, wow, I want that. And then what do you know? Our community is rising up together to step into that power. What are your thoughts on that?
It's total truth. Like, I mean, one of the things that I think the survivor's guilt is we want everyone to have what we have, and then they don't have it. And we're like, well, why doesn't anyone want this? Well, the reality is they may not be ready. They may not believe. They may not understand. They may be scared to do the work themselves for various amount of reasons. I wrote a blog post at the beginning of last year talking about reasons why people don't do the work. And one of the reasons why is I'll fail at doing the work or the work will fail me. And when I talk about doing the work, what I really mean is the healing work, the deep introspective work that actually allows us to take the next steps in our lives, that allows us to actually level up. So
that's amazing.
That is the work. And a lot of times we're like, well, I've done the work and nobody else around me is doing it. What's wrong with me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But you're spending so much time comparing yourself to everyone that you're like, man, I now it's like I must be doing something wrong. No, you're doing absolutely nothing wrong. You're doing everything exactly the way you're supposed to be doing it. You just feel like you're doing something wrong because either other people are not on board or it doesn't look like someone else is healing. So that survivor's guilt is very
Mm.
interesting because it's like, you know, we want everyone's path to be ours, and we have to understand it's not. Your path is your path, and that's perfect.
So good. I have two really big ones that I'm curious about. First, I want to talk about you working specifically with women. And I ask this question because as a practitioner, I do work exclusively with women. And so I really loved our conversation. You were talking about how women can feel safe with you and how that is something that's like flows really easily to you because not only like your own trauma story, but just how you're able to handle it and like I'm seeing a vision of like just like delicately hold space for female trauma. And I know a lot of my audience, they are females. So would you want to share a little bit about that, your experience working with women?
Absolutely. I think one of the best things about becoming a theta healing practitioner has been the ability to understand how to be a nurturer. So, I actually have more natural feminine energy than masculine energy. Moving out here to Nevada actually is helping me to develop my masculine energy, and of course, then having
So
a newborn daughter.
cowboys.
Right? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just being a father. Being a new father is also one of those things. I have a 2-month-old daughter. She just turned 2 months last Friday, and it's been really big. But even before that, it's allowed me. This modality, this technique, allowed me to really understand how to communicate with the opposite sex, and partially to really understand trauma for what it is. Trauma has no cultural base, no gender base, none of that. It just is. And when you understand what people are going through, you can have empathy for what they're dealing with. So when it comes to, it's funny because the majority of my clients are also women. The majority of my clients have always been women. And I've had men, and I actually wish I had more men, but I do work primarily with a lot of women. And the most important thing that you can do as a practitioner is learn how to hold space, sans judgment, sans like, well, I would have done this. Well, who cares?
Right.
It's your job to be there and to listen and just to hold space. I have, one of the common themes of people I've worked with, excuse me, are people who have been molested. Actually, that is a common theme for some very strange reasons. Which is funny because I have not been molested myself. That is not
Yeah.
something I have experienced, but I've worked with a fair number of people who have been molested or had some sort of trauma similar to that. And just to be able to, and it's funny because when you look at the people who've been molested, these are a lot of times people who are in their late 40s, early 50s. You're strong women, your strong personality, the people who have been really, leaders in their communities, leaders at their jobs, managers, department heads, stuff like that. And they've hidden this stuff because they don't want people to know because they were ashamed of it. But also at the time that they grew up in a society, that's something you just didn't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's funny because there was a story that Vienna Steibel, the founder of Theta Healing, was talking about and how she ended up speaking with the law of truth, uh, which is in the sixth plane of existence. When we do work, we go to the seventh plane. The sixth plane has the laws, sacred geometry, and Akashic records. And she ended up seeing the law of truth, and where she was living at the time, she saw all of her clients were molesting their children, and it was pretty intense. And so, it's really interesting that I've worked with a fair number of people who've also experienced that same thing. But to be able to, it's funny, you looked at the whole, you had a vision of kind of cradling. It's that nurturing of the process. The healing process is something that should be nurtured. And as someone who's a theta healing practitioner and someone who not only works on myself but also gets worked on, I understand what it is to be nurturing and walking people through the nurturing process of the healing journey. And in doing so, I'm allowing myself to connect with them empathetically, and allowing myself to see their trauma for what it is and just be able to hold space for them and say, hey, you can cry, you can release, you can scream. I would rather you not hit me, but if you feel you need to, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you not to. Just understand that, I might need you to pay for my medical bills if something, you break my nose or my jaw or something like that. But yeah, I mean, holding space for that emotion to come out. And it's like, I don't want to feel these feelings. Look, I get it. I do get it, because when I was dealing with, I don't know what happened in that 30-minute session where I was totally healed, but I know that the very next day, the world looked completely different to me. And I knew
Mm-hmm.
very shortly after I became a Theta Healing practitioner that I was not going to be at my job for much longer. And um, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Surprisingly, I got myself fired.
Yeah.
But yes, holding space for women, it's really important, because what you realize is, women and men do need a little bit of a different nurturing because of the energy that men and women hold. But believe it or not, it's not much. But
Mm,
it's really understanding that you do need to hold space for them where they are and
I
allow
love
them and
that.
their emotions to come up. And the best thing about working with women is they have no problem just dumping their emotions on me, because women naturally understand that. Men, on the other hand, have absolutely no idea,
It's
because
okay.
we're
Safe.
taught,
Yeah.
well, yeah, well, I mean, men are just not taught to be emotionally intelligent. We're taught to be strong and devoid of emotion. And if you cry, you're a little piece of crap. And, all these other terrible names that we can give to men. And, it's
Programming.
awful. Yeah, exactly. It's terrible programming, and it's destroyed the world, and it's continuing to destroy the world. And so we need a harmony, a new harmony of energy. We need more feminine leadership. We really do.
Oh man, I love that. We need more. That's a call to action. More
Hmm.
feminine leadership. I love that. So, what would you say for, okay, one session for you was completely life changing?
Hmm.
What would you say is ideal for a client? I always describe it as like a massage, right? If you go to have a massage, you're going to feel really, really good for maybe a few days, maybe a week. But if we go back to sitting in our same crooked spot, or the way that we cross our legs, or the way that we sleep, and the way that we're sitting in our chair, the next thing you know, you're going to have those same kinks in your body. So it's really like shifting those habits. And so that's why it is important to have tools moving forward. So for your clients, do you usually have them come like for a package of 4 or 1, or how does that work? What do you recommend?
My recommendation is to work with people really as long as you can until you've moved through them. So I start people off usually a package of 4 to 6 sessions, ideally 6. And the main
Mm-hmm.
reason why is because healing is a practice that takes time and it takes lots of
Yes.
work.
Right.
If you think that you're going to see a practitioner and in one session later and you're magically cleared, I really think that there's a delusional aspect to that, because you did not get to this space in one day. You're not going to heal decades of trauma in one
Right, right,
session
right.
either. It's going to take
Layers and
time.
layers.
Absolutely. It's a layer. You're peeling back the onion every single time you go to a session. And even when you're living in life. And so, when something, people have one session with me, they're like, yeah, it's great. And then it wore off a week later. No, it didn't wear off. What happened is you expanded and you hit a new trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So now we
Well
got to
said.
peel
Yeah.
back the onion to get you past that trigger. And as a friend of mine had a really good explanation of it. How healing works is, you have this expanding thing, and then you hit a trigger and you contract. Then you expand some more, a new thing contract, expand some more and contract. And that's the healing process. You're constantly in this expansion and contraction, this tension and release, because healing is not linear. It's not a linear process at all. It's an expansive process. It's a process that takes lots of time. So I usually start people out with 6 sessions. The other thing I do is I talk about soul liberation coaching, which is basically my brand of life coaching. And the reason why I do that is because healing is a wonderful tool and a wonderful thing to do, but you also have to give people the direction. So I don't do coaching separate from healing, because I want people to,
Mm-hmm.
because too many coaches tell people what to do, they don't tell them why.
Yeah.
And so, oh, sorry about that.
There
Um,
we go.
there it goes. I'm like, hey, what the heck happened? I got a notification somehow, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Anyway, a lot of coaches tell people what to do instead of why. So what ends up happening with me is I like to give them the why first, give them the healing so that they can understand and embody the why versus tell them what. So our traditional method of teaching is what, how, why, I flip that and reverse it so that
Mm-hmm.
you can understand why you're doing something. Then you can understand how, and then you know what to do without me having to actually tell you. Because now at that point, it's automatic, it's embodied, it's fully embraced and understood. And you don't have to have me tell you, well, this is what you have to do next. And if I give you the what, well, then you know what, you understand it. You're like, now I know what, now I understand why he told me to do that.
Yeah.
So that is an 8-week process. It's an intensive process. It comes with 8 healing sessions and 8 coaching sessions as well, plus homework. So
Of course.
all that
Yeah.
all that allows you then to create that connection going forward, and then you have embodied that healing, and then you can take that and allow that energy to naturally flow. And I call that program the Ride to Flow.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about some testimonials. I know you've had a profound testimonial. What are some of the coolest things that you've seen in your practice, like the most amazing shifts?
Oh man, I actually had back when I remember starting Theta Healing, I was telling one of my friends about it. I'm like, man, I want to try this on you. So he's like, all right, cool, come over Friday morning and we'll work on me. Well, he ended up having a bad water skiing accident. His knee was jacked up. Like he got out of the car and was limping extremely badly toward the door. And
But he's dedicated to the session, right?
right, it was interesting. Oh my goodness. Like, I worked on him for 2 hours, and at the end of those 2 hours, his knee pain was completely gone. That was probably one of the most profound things. And that's when I'm like, man, wait, this did that? I also had another friend who I did this to, and she was sick at the time. And by the time and the next day, her sickness was gone. She was starting to
Hmm.
get sick, and the next day, she's like, "What did you? I don't know what you just did, but it was gone." And so I'm like, I look at those things, I'm like, man, that was really, really cool. And I talk about this because when it comes to healing, people often talk about, we like to compartmentalize physical and mental health. And it's like, well, mental health is just as important as physical health. No, mental health is physical health. It's called psychosomatic or
Hmm.
visceral. So the things that are going on in your body are a metaphor of the things that are going on in your life. And with the psychosomatic, we're talking about mental and emotional um, issues that start to affect the physical body. So think about, for example, stress, and look at the research on stress. Fun fact for everyone watching this video, 70 to 90% of all doctor's visits are due to stress and stress related illnesses.
Yeah.
That is
I
the CDC's statistic, not my own. So you
yeah.
think about that. 70 to 90% of all doctor's visits, 70 to 90% of all people are coming into stress and stress related illnesses. Well, what does stress actually do? If you take a look at the research, the first thing that shuts down is your gut.
Hmm.
80% of the immune system is located where? In your
Yep, in
gut.
your intestines. Yeah.
And that goes back to the time as cavemen, when if we're eating some food and we start to digest our food, and some animal that's 4 times our size wants to come and kill us, what did we have to do? We had to kick in the stress response, which kicked in our adrenaline and gave us this immense amount of strength to run away from this animal. And after we got back, and after we got away and we were able to calm down, then our gut turned back on and we could digest food, because we didn't need that energy to digest food at the time. We needed that energy to get away. Well,
Right.
what happens today, now we have chronic stress. That means our gut's always shut off. So, then the biggest problem is you start having digestive issues. I've dealt with digestive issues for years. So it's a crazy thing. So the other thing with stress does is it overproduces adrenaline and overproduces cortisol. So look at the people who are constantly stressed out and look how old they look. They look like they've aged 30 years. And when they remove that stress, that chronic stress from their life, they look younger. And you're like, wait a second, what was going on? What happened is there was no more stress. They calmed the stress response down. And so when we're looking at that, when we're doing theta healing and we're releasing the triggers and the trauma, we're alleviating that stress response. We're getting people out of fight or flight or freeze response and allowing their nervous system to reset itself and their body systems to reset themselves so that they can become whole and complete again, and not feel like they're broken, because you're not broken. You've just disconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. What would you say? So, I mean, so much, because I would say, have been recovered for a few years now. Really, since I met my husband, honestly, he's been like such a savior in that way. He told me, being self-employed, he's like, your boss is a jerk. He told me that because he's like, you're so hard on yourself, like, run, 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 and hustle, hustle, hustle. And so that is a huge shift that I think everyone can take some time to reflect on, of like, what is it that is triggering your stress, and what is it going to take to alleviate that? What would be, aside from a theta healing session, what would you say, Timothy, are your top tips for reducing and relieving stress?
Oh man, one of the easiest things you can do is go for a walk.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
Grounding.
Yep, yeah. If you can do it on the grass with no shoes, that's even better. But if you can't, just go for a walk. 15 to 30 minutes. It's great, of course, if there's sunshine in your face, but like here today in Reno, we're having a bit of a gray day. It's been actually rainy and gray all week and kind of sucks. But go for a walk. Like seriously, just go out, put some shoes on when we're done today, and just if you have time and you have the ability to, just go for a walk. 15 to 30 minutes, ideally 30 if you can. Also, walking right after a meal helps with
Mm-hmm.
activating digestion. So that really helps if you're looking at losing weight or increasing your health. Plus, moving starts to move your energy. So from a scientific standpoint, physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, activates digestion, the body systems, things of that nature. Energetically, if you're stuck and you can't, and your energy is not moving, you yourself need to start moving. So that's one of the things I totally recommend. Go for a walk if you can. Another thing to alleviate stress that I absolutely recommend, and I was talking about this at the Unity Church on Sunday, is journaling. And the main reason
Yeah.
why is because journaling activates EMDR therapy. So, but the other thing is just that it's a way for you to start learning how to express your emotions because it's just you and the page. No one's reading it. No one should be reading your diary or your journal. And you can write whatever you want. If you're pissed off, be pissed off on the page. If you're
Yeah.
sad, be sad on the page. If you feel lost on the page. People always talk about, man, what do I write about when I'm journaling? Who cares? Just start
Anything.
writing. It's
Yeah.
like even if you're sitting down and saying, I'm writing in my journal. I have no idea what to write about, but I am writing in my journal. Seriously, just write. Just get stuff
Mm-hmm.
out because you don't want that energy to just sit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those are
Emotional
my tips.
constipation.
Absolutely. And in the vein of emotional constipation, emotional backup, we have to realize that there's a dark side, a huge dark side to emotional backup. And that's either,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't express emotions after a while, people do one or two things. They either explode or implode or
Mm-hmm.
hurting other people or themselves respectively. And so when you talk about exploding, the extreme that we have seen in our society, unfortunately, is mass shootings. The extreme of implosion is suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, those are extremes, but you can look at all the other things in between. So like if you're getting triggered and you haven't released your emotions and you want to explode on someone, you could be walking down the street, someone says an offhanded comment and you haymaker them. And I'm like, that wait, whoa, what just happened? You're that triggered that you had to hammer some random person who made an offhanded comment? That's when it's time to understand that something's going on. So I think another thing is learning how to pay attention to our emotions and have some sort of emotional intelligence. So I think those are my two things that I would say that they can do immediately is go for a walk. That's probably the easiest thing. Now, of course, if you are disabled, and I do want to make sure that I talk about this because it's easy for me to sit here say, yay, go for a walk because I have two functioning legs and I don't have to walk around with a cane or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you are disabled, get into nature
Mm-hmm.
with either with the help of someone or if you can do it yourself, fantastic. But get into nature. Go by a running river. Um, go by, um, go into, for us, we're fortunate that we live in the mountains, so we can just go outside and, look out the window right there and there is mountains and we can just sit there and stare at them all day. But
Mm-hmm.
get away from mass population. I would say that's probably my third thing is going to nature.
And EMFs, yeah, getting away from all of the EMFs too.
Hmm.
And even animals, like volunteering at the Humane Society or something. Animals are so grounding and so nurturing. That's a really, really amazing way to, not that you're like pouring your energy into the animals, but it's like a mutual love and release.
Absolutely. So definitely get into nature, get into, get around animals. Those are things as well. And so that I think that's the other thing. I also believe that, you know, in addition to theta healing, there are also tools that I totally recommend. And oh, there we go. Okay.
You're back.
Okay, cool. Like, geez, man, everyone's messaging me right now. I'm like, God,
Popular. Yeah.
right. I thought about, here we go again. Guys, like, leave me alone. I'm trying to be on a live today. It's funny. I'm like, I turn off airplane mode, so I turn on airplane mode and put on myself on Wi-Fi just so I wouldn't have anyone calling me and anything like that. And now I get all these people messaging me with stuff. I'm like, man, leave
They're
me
just
alone.
they're just a part of the conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
So,
those are amazing tips that everyone can implement 100% because I think we need it. And even the other day, I just got a new computer. I'm so excited because I've been running my business, I don't know how, but from my iPad. And I was using my computer. And actually, when I walk into the Apple store consistently, when I do, my head gets fuzzy. Like I feel like I'm not able to make a decision. And when I went to go pick out my computer, I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, honey, I don't feel good. Like, I need your help making a decision. I can't. It was just like so cloudy. And then, so I couldn't order it. So I like went at home and then I ordered it from home so I could get out of there. And then I went again to pick it up and it was the same thing. And so it's like all of the EMFs, right? I mean, I would blow my own mind, I'm sure, if we were to test that. And then I got my computer and as I was using it, my right hand, it was freezing cold and it I just like felt almost like the EMFs were just like crawling up my arm. And I was like, this is so weird. I'm not used to this. I have an EMF neutralizer on my phone and it was on my iPad as well. So I just went outside. So recognize these things, right? Like this was an alarm system, my internal alarm system saying, ding, 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 ding. No, you don't want, this isn't normal. And I just put my hands on the dirt. 2 feet, 2 hands, and it's cold and raining, but I was like, I just need to drain this out. And I was wringing out my wrist. That's another thing, right? If you're working at a computer, if you're working around a lot of technology, that's going to add to your stress overload as well. Maybe not consciously, but like your body, your physiology is taking that in. So wring it out. Give it permission. Just like send it out to the earth. Mother Earth, Mama Gaia loves to recycle all of that.
yes, and I want to add to that, if you are a person who's constantly staring at a screen all day for work, I absolutely recommend you getting some sort of blue light blocking glasses because, or turning the nightlight function on your phone or on your computer because it saves your eyes. It's just easier on your eyes. You know, LEDs are a fantastic way to save energy, but they're not good for your eyes. And
Do
that's
you have
really
a
unfortunate.
do you have a brand that you like? Because I need to get some too.
I've used the Swanwick brand in the past, back when I was still in Michigan, and working at a really cool center, 21st Century Mental Health Gym, which is expanding now in LA. So if you're in LA, you have to check out Inception. And I'm going to be, they're opening in July, and I'm going to be down there in July. I'm like, man, I hope I can catch your grand opening when I'm there. But use Swanwick brand is the brand that I use. There are other brands, but that's just the one that I can tell you that I've had personal experience with, and I love them. And I want to get some myself, and they have come down in price. They used to be like $100. Now they're closer to 50, 25 or so. So I would definitely check out Swanwick, Swanwick.
I was like swan with a wig. Okay, got it. Now
Swan with a
got it.
wick, so you light it on
Yeah.
fire, and then it forms these cool frames, and then the
Yeah.
thing turns orange and it blocks the blue.
You'll never forget it. Good. I have actually I went to a conference and a friend of mine was wearing those and I was like, wow. And she's like, yeah, there's so many lights. Like you want to protect yourself in all of the ways. And so super duper exciting. So with that, let's talk about people if they want to connect with you. What are the best ways for people to connect with you? I know I'm going to post the links above and below of this video. You have Instagram and Twitter, things like that. What are your favorite platforms?
My favorite platforms are Facebook and Instagram. You can also email me at theinfinitetransition@gmail.com. My website is also theinfinitetransition.com, and you can find me there as well. That is really the best way to get in contact with me is really email or social media are the two fastest ways. And I would also like to say that you can also join my email list where I do send out weekly tips and really cool things as well. And I'll be sharing some of my interviews that I've had over the past couple of weeks that have been really cool. One with, we were talking about mental health when it relates to fasting. I was on a chat on Instagram with someone, and we were talking about fasting. And it's really, really cool, and talk about mental health when it comes to weight and weight related issues. And I'm like, man, that was a great talk. It was perfect for our discussion. So yeah, we'll be posting a lot of those really cool things going on. So keep an eye out. And also, I have a Facebook group. I forgot to share this link with you, so I'll make sure I do it as well when
Yeah.
we're done. I've unlocked the Infinite Power Within, which is basically a way for you to have a much more personalized connection with me versus just my typical Facebook fan page. And and I would love to have you there and contribute to the conversation, and have challenges come up. So be sure to be a part of some of those as well. And maybe we can talk about some really cool discussions to help you unlock your infinite power within.
I love it. And yeah, when we last talked, we talked for hours, and it could have gone on and on and on and on. I know that you have such a wealth of knowledge, so really encouraging people to check out the site, check out the email list, definitely go to the group, whatever it is, because I know that you've got a lot of amazing content coming out, and also your blog too. I know you have some great content on there. So if you guys have any questions, again, the links will be above and below. So with that, Timothy, what's one last tip that you would like to leave our audience with to empower them to expand and live their life and elevate from mediocre to magical?
The the magical life that you are looking for is hiding behind the trauma you are desperately trying to avoid.
Oh my
So,
gosh, that's perfect. It is.
so, yeah, the healing you seek is there. The magic you're looking for is all there. So
Everything within you. Yeah.
don't be afraid to face that trauma, even if it is painful. And I know it hurts. And I was talking about this, and this is actually a great way to end this because I was talking about this at the Unity Church. I included this in my talk. That a lot of people are saying, I shouldn't have to tell my story again. There are a lot of movements out there talking about that. And it's true. You don't have to tell your story again. But just because you don't have to tell it doesn't mean you don't have to face it. So
Mm.
you may not have to tell your story, but you do have to face it because the healing is hidden behind that story. So take care. So face the story, get the healing, and you're good to go.
That is amazing. That is so good. Yes, thank you for that very, very powerful tip. And we love you. Thank you for all of your wisdom today. And we will see you next time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone. We love you so much. Wishing
Bye.
you an amazing day full of all of the amazing things. See ya.
Bye bye, everyone.